He utterly hated Kirk Douglas. Now we know the explosive reason why. Kirk Douglas engaged audiences through his movies for decades. His cinematic brilliance masked a man who generated fear and hatred among his Hollywood peers. The American Film Institute recognized him as the 17th greatest male star of classic Hollywood cinema, and he appeared in more than 90 films. Yet Douglas-born Issur Danielovitch earned a reputation that echoed through Hollywood's corridors. Douglas acknowledged his status, saying he was probably the most disliked actor in Hollywood. His notorious reputation went beyond professional disagreements into concerning personal conduct. People celebrated his explosive acting style, but Douglas openly admitted to being a womanizer. His name became connected to disturbing allegations. Questions lingered about the 1949 disappearance of starlet Jean Spangler, who reportedly had an affair with him. More serious claims emerged about Natalie Wood, who was allegedly assaulted by Douglas at age 16. The story reveals a complex web of power intimidation and Hollywood's culture of silence that surrounded one actor's deep hatred for Kirk Douglas. Richard Harris confronts Kirk Douglas on set. The tension between leading men on Hollywood sets could explode at any moment. No rivalry matched the instant hatred between Richard Harris and Kirk Douglas during the filming of The Heroes of Telemark in 1964. Their clash became a legend in film circles and showed a lot about Douglas's controversial reputation. First meeting sparks instant hostility. The drama started before cameras rolled. Douglas boarded the ship where they filmed the first scenes. The 48-year-old star carried himself like an aging lion who wouldn't give up his spot at the top of Hollywood's food chain. Witnesses saw Douglas size up his Irish co-star and deliver a sharp first greeting. "Are you going to be as difficult as they say you are?" Harris didn't back down from Douglas's star power and shot back, "Are you going to be as big a bastard as they say you are?" This heated exchange kicked off what became one of cinema's most notorious on-set feuds. Douglas's power made the hostility worse. He had started his own production company, Bryna Productions, in 1949, which gave him lots of control over his projects. Meeting a younger rival in Harris Douglas seemed dead set on staying in charge. Things got worse after Harris visited Douglas's home and saw how the star-born Issur Danielovitch had displayed all his film awards in his hallway. Harris supposedly asked, "Do you have to remind yourself how great you are? Are you that sad?" Douglas's legendary ego took a hit from this personal attack. Power struggle begins during filming. Production started, and the rivalry turned into petty power plays and outright sabotage. Publicist John Willis said both stars made crazy demands that messed up production. Harris showed up at the studio one day with a tape measure. He checked Douglas's trailer size and announced he was leaving because it was a few inches bigger than his. Everyone waited until they found a longer trailer. More childish behavior followed. Douglas fired his chauffeur after a fight, so Harris hired the man right away just to get under his co-star's skin. Actress Ulla Jacobson remembered, "It was a battle from beginning to end. They were both fighting for camera position, and neither was prepared to give way to the other. I have never known anything quite like it before." Harris used Douglas's personal life as ammunition too. Douglas bragged about his latest girlfriend, a former Miss Norway, and Harris shot back with sarcasm. "Oh yeah, what year?" Physical threats came next, when Harris taunted the older Douglas. 20 years ago, you could have handled me, maybe, but not now. So don't press your luck." Everyone on set felt the tension between these two stars. Director Anthony Mann turned this bad blood into something useful. Those boys are fine actors. They're both tough and strong personalities. They clashed a little sometimes, but that was good. Tension was the keynote of this film, Mann explained. Their on-screen roles seemed to mirror real life. Douglas played a self-centered scientist who didn't want to fight Germans, while Harris portrayed a determined resistance leader. Mann noticed their off-screen hatred made their scenes together more intense. The film told the story of Norwegian resistance fighters trying to stop Germans from getting heavy water for atomic bomb development. This high-stakes backdrop matched the actor's personal war. Douglas had a history of such conflicts. He earned his difficult reputation throughout his career, especially with directors. He fought regularly with Stanley Kubrick on Spartacus and Paths of Glory, once throwing a chair at him after arguing about close-up shots. Douglas's wife suggested they try therapy together because these conflicts got so bad. The Harris-Douglas feud showed a pattern in Douglas's career. His need for power control and ego often created hostile sets that went beyond simple creative differences. Why did Harris call Douglas a bastard? Richard Harris's description of Kirk Douglas as a bastard went beyond their explosive first meeting. A series of hostile encounters revealed the darker side of one of Hollywood's biggest stars. Their conflict evolved from verbal sparring into an ego battle that almost derailed the entire production of The Heroes of Telemark. Clashing egos and on-set sabotage. Harris and Douglas's antagonism showed up in petty power plays. Both stars drove to set in separate Jaguars and managed to keep their distance. The situation got worse when Harris drove up in a Rolls-Royce, a power move that made Douglas so angry he wouldn't work until he got the same treatment. This childish competition showed the insecurity that haunted even Hollywood's biggest names. I noticed he was an aging lion who wouldn't give up his spot at the top. A crew member said about Douglas, he wouldn't give an inch to a brash young Irish upstart like Harris. Their rivalry went beyond cars. Director Anthony Mann observed, "Those boys are fine actors. They're both tough and strong personalities. They clashed a little sometimes, but that was good. Tension was the keynote of this film." Mann used their real-life animosity to enhance their on-screen characters. Douglas played self-centered, sybaritic scientist Rolf Pedersen, who preferred waiting out the war in the arms of as many women as possible, instead of fighting Germans, while Harris became the charismatic resistance leader. Douglas, born Issur Danielovitch, a name rarely seen in publicity, materials had a reputation for being demanding and hot-headed on sets. His famous temper echoed throughout Hollywood, with co-stars often calling him a mesmerizing rat bastard on screen, who could be just as difficult off camera. Douglas's control over scenes and stunts, Douglas's controlling behavior extended past his feud with Harris. He fired Spartacus's original director, Anthony Mann, after just 1 week of filming. This habit of taking control over productions became his trademark, earning both respect and hatred across the industry. His fights with directors became legendary. Douglas's arguments with Stanley Kubrick during Spartacus grew so prolonged and vicious that both men needed therapy together. Such extreme measures had never been seen in Hollywood, showing Douglas's exceptional ability to create tension. Douglas showed his controlling nature through several tactics. 1. Rewriting scenes to favor his character. 2. Demanding particular camera angles and lighting. 3. Intimidating supporting actors. 4. Insisting on specific stunt arrangements that showcased his physicality. Harris battled Douglas constantly for screen time. Actress Ulla Jacobson noted, "They were both fighting for camera position, and neither was prepared to give way to the other. Every scene turned into a battleground. Douglas's supporters pointed to his role as a producer-actor, noting he was breaking studio contracts and setting himself up as a producer by the mid-1950s. This dual role gave him actual authority on set, though many felt he misused this power. An industry insider explained Kirk was very much the Harvey Weinstein of his day, remaking an industry as a major player while behind closed doors he was abusing all of that power he had amassed. Douglas's personal behavior affected how others saw him professionally. As a self-admitted womanizer who often used his status and power to have affairs with starlets, his reputation for exploiting power dynamics followed him to film sets. Harris, known for his own difficult personality, found Douglas's mix of professional control and personal misconduct particularly offensive. The two stars barely maintained civility during their time filming in Norway, with both trying to undermine each other. The whole ordeal ended up creating an on-screen tension that helped the film, despite making everyone's life miserable during production. How did Douglas manipulate his co-stars? Movie stars who worked with Kirk Douglas often found themselves outplayed in a high-stakes game where screen time meant stardom. Douglas, known for his legendary dimple and explosive performances, became a skilled manipulator who controlled almost everything in his films, especially his co-stars' roles. Rewriting scenes to steal spotlight. Kirk Douglas showed an incredible knack for taking control of films throughout his career, which often came at his fellow actors' expense. His role in The Bad and the Beautiful, 1952, one of 3 Oscar-nominated performances, had him playing a character that mirrored his real life, a tough film producer who uses actors, writers, and directors. This performance revealed something telling Douglas knew manipulation because he lived it. As executive producer of Spartacus, Douglas had enormous control over the production. He claimed credit for the iconic "I am Spartacus" scene and said he convinced director Stanley Kubrick to shoot it. The real story wasn't that simple. Dalton Trumbo's family and producer Lewis confirmed that Trumbo wrote the scene after watching a rough cut of the film. Douglas later spiced up his story with dramatic details about confronting Kubrick on horseback, a tale that others involved in the production disputed. Stanley Kubrick's biggest contribution to Spartacus was cutting Trumbo's dialogue. He removed all but 2 lines of Douglas's dialogue in the first half hour of the film. "We fought about that one, but I won," Kubrick said, which showed the power struggles that were common in Douglas's productions. Douglas's spotlight-stealing habits stayed strong, even in his later years. The 94-year-old actor presented the Best Supporting Actress Award at the 2011 Academy Awards and made the moment his own. He swaggered on stage with the help of a cane and proceeded to hold the spotlight with off-the-cuff jokes and obvious pleasure. Douglas worked the moment for every second, which proved his scene-stealing instinct never faded. Undermining supporting actors' roles. Douglas handled his co-stars strategically. He built partnerships with big names like Burt Lancaster instead of trying to dominate them. You could see this in Gunfight at the OK Corral, 1957, where Douglas played Doc Holliday alongside Lancaster's Wyatt Earp. This partnership dynamic continued in 7 Days in May, 1964. Less established actors weren't anywhere near as lucky. Douglas got unprecedented control over casting scripts and production decisions when he started Bryna Productions in 1955. His company, named after his mother, let him reshape films to highlight his talents while sidelining supporting actors. This power showed clearly in productions like Paths of Glory and Spartacus. His ego off-screen pushed many colleagues away. Doris Day put it bluntly, "Kirk never makes much effort toward people. He's pretty much wrapped up in himself." His self-absorption showed most clearly in how he treated fellow actors, and he became known as demanding and difficult to work with. Douglas's demanding nature went beyond work. Burt Lancaster said something revealing at a 1987 American Academy of Dramatic Arts tribute. "Kirk would be the first person to tell you he's a very difficult man, and I would be the second." Though tough to work with, Douglas expected others to match the high standards he set for himself. Even family felt Douglas's controlling nature. When his son Michael got the rights to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, a project Kirk tried to adapt for 10 years, Michael cast Jack Nicholson instead of his father. Kirk's response said it all. "If I had known he was going to be such a famous person, I would have been much nicer to him when he was young." Douglas ended up manipulating his co-stars because success alone couldn't satisfy his endless need for recognition. He behaved just like his character Jonathan Shields in The Bad and the Beautiful, someone who, despite being controlling and overbearing, stayed committed to making excellent films. What role did Gene Spangler's disappearance play? Kirk Douglas's reputation was forever shadowed by one of Hollywood's most disturbing, unsolved mysteries. The disappearance of aspiring actress Gene Spangler in 1949 remains unsolved, and her case became tied to Douglas through a mysterious note and questionable timing. Spangler's note, addressed to Kirk, Gene Spangler, 27, disappeared on October 7, 1949. She told her family she would meet her ex-husband before going to a night film shoot. Her purse turned up in Griffith Park 2 days later. Inside was a torn note that read, "Kirk can't wait any longer. Going to see Dr. Scott. It will work best this way while Mother is away." The note ended with a comma suggesting there was more to say. Police began searching to identify Kirk from Spangler's note. Kirk Douglas's movies were becoming more popular, and he had just finished filming Young Man with a Horn, a production where Spangler worked as an extra. The timing raised questions because discussions about illegal abortions often used code words about seeing a doctor. The case took an unexpected turn after police found that Spangler had dated a married man before she vanished. Several witnesses said they saw Spangler with someone who looked like Douglas at the Cheesecake Factory in Hollywood that night. The police couldn't find any solid evidence that connected Douglas to her disappearance. Douglas denies knowing her, despite film connection. Kirk Douglas, born Issur Danielovitch, reached out to investigators in Palm Springs after learning they wanted to question him. Police records show Douglas claimed he wasn't the Kirk in Spangler's note. He said he didn't know her except for having met her once at a party and couldn't remember what she looked like. Studio records showed both Douglas and Spangler worked on Young Man with a Horn for several days, which contradicted his strong denial. Douglas left for Europe right after Spangler disappeared, supposedly for a planned vacation. Many people thought this timing seemed convenient. Douglas wrote about the Spangler case in his autobiography. He maintained his innocence, but admitted that finding the name Kirk in her note caused me a lot of problems. People still wondered why he denied knowing someone from his own film set. The case went cold, but became part of Hollywood folklore. Author James Elroy wove elements of Spangler's disappearance into his novel, The Black Dahlia, showing how the mystery became part of Hollywood's darker side. The Spangler case added another layer to Douglas's complex legacy of professional success and troubling personal allegations. Whispers about his possible involvement followed him throughout his career, despite his consistent denials and lack of proof. Jean Spangler's fate remains unknown. Her case stands as one of Hollywood's most intriguing mysteries, connected to Kirk Douglas through a simple note signed Kirk. Did Natalie Wood fear Kirk Douglas? The most serious allegations against the star of many Kirk Douglas movies came to light decades after a disturbing incident. These claims changed how people viewed the legendary actor and revealed a darker side behind his charismatic screen presence. Allegations of rape at Chateau Marmont, summer 1955, marked a turning point for both Natalie Wood and Kirk Douglas. Wood, just 16 or 17 years old at the time, worked on The Searchers with John Wayne. Douglas, 38 or 39, had already become a Hollywood power player. Their paths crossed at the famous Chateau Marmont Hotel in Los Angeles. Natalie's mother, Maria Zakharenko, arranged this meeting because she believed many doors might be thrown open for her, with just a nod of his famous, handsome head on her behalf. The events that allegedly happened that evening stayed hidden for decades. Multiple accounts describe how Natalie returned to the car where her younger sister Lana and their mother waited. She looked awful. She was very disheveled and very upset, Lana Wood recalled in her memoir. She and Mom started urgently whispering to each other. I couldn't really hear them or make out what they were saying. 8-year-old Lana felt the tension. Something bad had apparently happened to my sister, but whatever it was, I was apparently too young to be told about it. Mother and daughter kept the incident secret, knowing that speaking up would destroy Natalie's promising career. Maria's advice to her daughter came brutally: suck it up. Lana Wood's testimony and posthumous claims. Natalie shared her experience with very few people during her lifetime. She managed to keep a professional demeanor whenever Douglas's name came up in conversation. Yet in private, according to Lana Wood, Natalie revealed her trauma. And he hurt me, Lana, Natalie told her sister years later when both had grown up. It was like an out-of-body experience. I was terrified, I was confused. This alleged assault remained one of Hollywood's whispered secrets for decades. Stories linking Douglas-born Issur Danielovitch to the assault circulated in industry circles. Author Suzanne Finstad's 2001 biography of Natalie Wood mentioned a powerful married movie star more than 20 years older than she, who had allegedly raped Wood. Finstad described the attack as so violent she bled and noted the star's threat: if you tell anyone, it'll be the last thing you do. Douglas's death in 2020 at age 103 brought these allegations back into focus. Natalie Wood's name trended alongside his on Twitter, proof of how far these rumors had spread. Lana Wood named Douglas in her 2021 memoir, Little Sister: My Investigation into the Mysterious Death of Natalie Wood. She explained why she broke her silence. With no one still around to protect, I'm sure she'll forgive me for finally breaking that promise. These allegations against Douglas tell just one story in Hollywood's history of protecting powerful men. Unlike many others whose reputations fell due to similar accusations, Douglas kept his celebrated status throughout his life. How did Hollywood protect Douglas for decades? The Hollywood machine worked like a fortress to protect its valuable assets. Stars like Kirk Douglas topped the list since their box office appeal brought in millions. A shadowy network lurked behind the glitzy premieres and award shows to shield powerful men from any fallout, whatever their actions. Studio fixers and silencing of victims. Hollywood studios hired specialized operatives called fixers to cover up scandals that could harm their star's image. These fixers were essentially damage control experts who silenced victims through threats, money, or destroying their reputation. The studio system jumped into action to protect their investment whenever anyone accused high-profile actors like Douglas-born Issur Danielovitch. Sexual assault accusations left victims with impossible choices. Natalie Wood's mother told her daughter to stay quiet about her alleged assault by Douglas. She knew that to speak out is not only to invite scandal and disgrace, but to dispel the very dream her industry exists to perpetuate. This practical but morally questionable advice showed the harsh truth. Victims who spoke up lost their careers while perpetrators walked free. Studios regularly called in the Pinkerton Detective Agency, America's oldest and largest security firm, to track down potential witnesses. The agency would strong-arm them into backing the studio's story. One documented case showed how studios sent their people to talk to a 19-year-old victim. She later told reporters that what people called an orgy was actually a jolly affair with lots of good, clean fun. Culture of complicity in the Golden Age. Hollywood's Golden Age ran on an unspoken code that protected powerful men at any cost. One industry insider put it bluntly: the power MGM had is unimaginable today. They owned everyone. The DA, the LAPD, they ran this place. Of course, this protection network spread beyond individual studios to cover law enforcement and legal authorities. The Motion Picture Production Code of 1934 aimed to prevent government censorship after scandals. Yet it mostly stripped women of their professional and personal agency on screen and off. This formal control system created perfect conditions for abuse to thrive unchecked. The Academy itself was complicit in this very dark period in Hollywood history, so men like Douglas built celebrated careers despite serious allegations. Unlike today's Me Too era, where accusations can destroy careers overnight, Hollywood's protective machine made sure that certain figures have got away with it for decades. Some called Douglas the Harvey Weinstein of his day, who was remaking an industry as a major player, while behind closed doors he was abusing all of that power. The system worked perfectly for him. Victims who tried to get justice soon learned that the systems in place that favor men with power allowed him to get away with the alleged crimes. Why did Douglas's public image remain untarnished? Kirk Douglas built a pristine public image that rarely showed the troubling accusations against him during his 6-decade career. The actor-born Issur Danielovitch continued to receive prestigious awards and glowing tributes from the entertainment industry, while dark rumors spread through Hollywood. Honors at Golden Globes, despite allegations. The 101-year-old Douglas stepped onto the 2018 Golden Globe Awards stage with his daughter-in-law, Catherine Zeta-Jones, and received a standing ovation. Other Hollywood figures saw their careers destroyed after allegations surfaced, but Douglas remained celebrated by multiple generations. His 3 Oscar nominations and 1996's honorary Academy Award highlighted an industry that wouldn't acknowledge his legacy's darker side. This celebration happened while the Me Too movement brought down other powerful men. Douglas, whose alleged actions included violence against Natalie Wood, avoided the reckoning that his contemporaries faced. These circumstances showed Hollywood's selective use of moral standards based on an actor's cultural impact. Media's role in shaping legacy. The traditional media outlets played a vital role to keep Douglas's image untarnished. Major publications consistently portrayed him as a philanthropist, civil rights supporter, and dedicated family man. The obituaries after his 2020 death at age 103 highlighted his professional achievements in 92 Kirk Douglas movies, while they downplayed or ignored serious allegations. Journalists handled rumors about Douglas carefully and often cited insufficient evidence to avoid publishing accounts from alleged victims. Douglas's reputation for suing publications that questioned his character made media outlets hesitant to report negative stories. Publications that covered the Natalie Wood allegations faced immediate pushback from Douglas's powerful supporters. These intimidation tactics effectively silenced negative coverage. Entertainment reporters knew the unwritten rule. Certain topics, including Gene Spangler's disappearance, stayed off limits when discussing Douglas's legacy. What finally exposed the truth about Douglas, the truth about Kirk Douglas, long whispered in the corridors of Hollywood, was not exposed by a single event, but by a slow, relentless cultural shift. For decades, the protective machinery of the studio system, a complicit media, and a culture of fear kept his darker side shielded from public view. The primary catalyst for change was the erosion of that very system. As the golden age of Hollywood waned, so too did the studio's absolute power to silence victims and control narratives. The rise of the internet and social media created a new democratized court of public opinion where whispers could become roars. Allegations that were once confined to tell-all memoirs and industry gossip found a global audience, making them impossible to ignore. Lana Wood's decision to finally name Douglas in her 2021 memoir after his death was a pivotal moment. It broke the seal of silence kept for over 60 years, empowered by a post-Me Too landscape where victims' voices were finally being amplified. Ultimately, it was time itself that dismantled the fortress around Douglas. The passing of key figures, the fading of old loyalties, and the courage of a new generation to speak out allowed the long-suppressed stories to surface. The truth was not unearthed in a single explosive revelation, but seeped out gradually, staining a carefully polished legacy and forcing a painful reevaluation of one of Hollywood's most iconic and complicated figures.